All right, everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You know how much we love to geek out over all things Hogwarts.
Right. Always a pleasure to delve into the magical world.
Yeah, and today we're tackling a question that I think a lot of fans have pondered at some point.
Oh, yeah, definitely. What is it?
It's kind of like this. Imagine you're a seventh year at Hogwarts. You ace your NEWTs, you're top of your class in charms and potions.
Yeah.
But, like, does that actually mean you're ready for what comes after Hogwarts?
The real world, yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
Like, will you actually be able to handle a job and maybe start a family, navigate all those adulting challenges just because you can conjure a Patronus or brew a perfect draft of living death?
It's a good question because Hogwarts is amazing, obviously, but it's kind of this isolated bubble.
Total bubble. And we're going to be looking at this through a few lenses today. We'll be pulling straight from the books. Those are our primary source.
Of course, the canon.
But we'll also be kind of witching in some real-world ideas about education and, you know, child development even.
Just to add those layers, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think there's a lot we can learn about the purpose of education in general by looking at Hogwarts.
Absolutely. So, where do we begin?
Okay, let's start with the positives. Hogwarts does some things really well. When it comes to prepping students for life after school,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of those strengths?
Well, one thing that immediately comes to mind is the emphasis on practical magic.
Makes sense.
Mm.
Like, you're not just reading about spells in a dusty old textbook. You're actually out there doing them.
Exactly.
Okay,
It's
fine.
hands-on from day one. I mean, think about even their first potions lesson.
Oh my God, yeah. Exploding cauldrons and all that.
Exactly. You learn by doing, and Hogwarts really embraces that philosophy.
And it's not just potions, right? I mean, Defense Against the Dark Arts is another prime example.
Absolutely. Remember Lupin teaching them about boggarts? He didn't just lecture them, he had them face their fears.
Yeah, that was such a brilliant lesson. Because it wasn't just about learning the ridiculous charm. It was about understanding the psychology behind fear, how to confront it.
Exactly. Practical magic, but with an emotional intelligence component.
Right. It's like they're learning real-world coping mechanisms disguised as magical spells.
Exactly. And you see this practicality across so many subjects.
Oh yeah, herbology is another one. Like, imagine you're a herbologist, or maybe you're working with magical creatures.
Right. You need those hands-on skills. Those aren't things you can just learn from a book.
Nope. You got to get your hands dirty. Literally in some cases.
Yeah, exactly. So that practical focus is definitely a huge strength to Hogwarts education.
And it's not just about practical skills, right? There's also a strong emphasis on critical thinking and problem solving.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where a subject like transfiguration really shines.
Okay, yeah, because transfiguration is so much more than just turning a teacup into a rat.
Right. It's about understanding the fundamental nature of an object.
Like its molecular structure.
Exactly. And then being able to visualize its transformation in your mind.
That's crazy when you think about it.
It is. It's basically a mental workout, and it forces you to think outside the box, to see things from different perspectives.
Which are essential skills for pretty much any career you can think of.
Absolutely. And let's not forget the sheer resilience Hogwarts students develop.
Oh yeah, between Quidditch and detentions in the Forbidden Forest, they're constantly facing challenges.
And let's be real, those challenges often involve life or death stakes.
No kidding.
Uh,
Just think about Harry's first year alone.
yeah.
I mean, he faced a three-headed dog, played life-size chess, and then went head-to-head with Voldemort.
All before he even turned 12.
Talk about a crash course in resilience.
Right. But those experiences, while terrifying, undoubtedly shape their character, teach them to think on their feet and work under pressure.
So we've got practical magic skills, critical thinking, and resilience.
A pretty solid foundation for adult life, wouldn't you say?
It seems like it. But I'm curious, is there anything missing from this picture?
Hmm.
Any areas where Hogwarts maybe falls short in preparing its students?
That's an interesting question. One area that comes to mind is moral education. Like, yes, Hogwarts champions values like bravery and friendship.
Right, Dumbledore's always going on about love and the power of choice.
Exactly. But at the same time, you have teachers like Snape who, well, let's just say they don't always model those values.
Yeah, Snape's constant bullying and favoritism towards Slytherin House definitely send mixed messages.
It's like they're being told to be brave and kind, but then they're also seeing that those rules don't always apply.
Especially if you're in the wrong house.
Exactly. So it makes you wonder how effectively Hogwarts is truly preparing students to grapple with those ethical dilemmas they'll inevitably face in the real world.
It's a great point, and one we definitely need to explore further. But before we dive too deep into the ethics of Hogwarts, I think it's worth taking a closer look at the individual subjects themselves.
Agreed. Because each subject offers its own unique set of skills and challenges, right?
Right. And maybe some hidden lessons about life beyond the classroom. So where do we start?
Well, I think it's only fitting that we begin with the subject that's always on everyone's mind.
Okay. I think I know where you're going with this defense against the dark arts.
Of course. Because let's face it, it's arguably the most important subject at Hogwarts.
Absolutely. And not just because of the whole you-know-who situation, but because it really gets at the heart of what it means to be a wizard or witch in a world where darkness is always lurking.
Exactly. And with its revolving door of teachers each bringing their own unique approach to the subject, it's like a microcosm of the wizarding world itself.
Okay, I am officially intrigued. Let's dive in and see what Defense Against the Dark Arts can teach us about life beyond Hogwarts.
Sounds like a plan. All right, so defense against the dark arts, right? Where do we even begin with this subject?
I know, right? It's like the poster child for unpredictability at Hogwarts. Every year, there's a new teacher, a new curriculum, sometimes even a new life-threatening situation.
Seriously, though, when you think about it, it's the one subject that really gets at the heart of the wizarding world's challenges.
Okay, yeah, because it's not just about learning how to fight off Grindylows and Kappas. It's about understanding the nature of darkness itself,
Exactly. And how to protect yourself and others from it.
which makes the revolving door of teachers even more fascinating. Because each one brings their own baggage, their own experiences, their own interpretation of what it means to defend against the dark arts.
Right, it's like they're each a piece of the puzzle.
A puzzle where the pieces keep changing every year.
Exactly. So let's start with our first puzzle piece, shall we? Quirina Squirrel.
Oh gosh, Professor Quirrell.
Oh,
You talk about a walking metaphor for hidden darkness.
right. Like Voldemort literally on the back of his head.
Seriously, though, even without Voldemort, Quirrell was just so timid, so ineffective as a teacher,
He seemed almost scared of his own subject.
which in retrospect is kind of ironic.
Yeah, definitely. But it does make you wonder, what if he had been a better teacher? Would he have been more resistant to Voldemort's influence?
That's a good question. Because maybe his own insecurities, his lack of confidence, made him an easy target.
It's like he was the embodiment of all those anxieties and fears that dark wizards prey upon.
Okay, so Quirrell teaches us about the importance of inner strength, right? Like you need a solid foundation to withstand those external forces of darkness.
I think so. And then we have Gilderoy Lockhart, who's kind of the opposite of Quirrell.
Oh, Lockhart, Mr. Steal Yo Girl, and then obliviate her memories so she forgets you did it?
Exactly.
Yeah,
All style, no substance.
right. He's like the wizarding world's equivalent of an Instagram influencer.
Obsessed with fame and appearances, but with zero actual expertise.
And his whole charade ultimately falls apart because he can't back up his boasts with real skill.
Which I think is a valuable lesson for Hogwarts students because they're surrounded by magic and power and it's easy to get caught up in the glamour of it all.
Right, like the temptation to take shortcuts to focus on appearances rather than substance.
Exactly. So Lockhart is a reminder that true strength comes from hard work and dedication, not from faking it till you make it.
Okay, then we have Remus Lupin, who in my opinion is the gold standard for a defense against the dark arts teacher.
Oh, Lupin was fantastic.
Yeah.
He was knowledgeable, compassionate, and genuinely cared about his students.
And he actually prepared them for the real dangers out there. Like he taught them about Boggart's Grindylows werewolves even.
And he did it all while battling his own inner demons.
Which is such an important lesson in itself, right? Because it shows that even the most talented and experienced wizards have vulnerabilities.
And that it's okay to ask for help when you need it.
Which is something that's often stigmatized in the wizarding world.
Right. Especially when it comes to things like mental health.
So Lupin is a reminder that strength and vulnerability can coexist.
Yeah.
That it's okay to be both.
Exactly. And then we swing back to the extreme with Barty Crouch Jr. disguised as Mad-Eye Moody.
Oh, Crouch Jr.
Yeah.
Talk about a master manipulator.
Seriously. He was so convincing that even Dumbledore didn't suspect him at first.
Which makes you wonder how many other Mad-Eye Moody's are out there.
Right. Like, how do you know who to trust when even the most seasoned Auror can be impersonated?
It's a scary thought for sure.
It is. But it also underscores the importance of critical thinking and not blindly following authority figures.
Right, because even those who seem powerful and experienced can have ulterior motives.
And then, of course, we have Dolores Umbridge, whose reign of terror was basically a masterclass in how not to teach defense against the dark arts.
Oh, Umbridge with her pink cardigans and fluffy kittens.
She was the embodiment of bureaucratic tyranny.
Seriously. Her insistence on purely theoretical learning actively put the students in danger.
Right, because they had no practical skills to defend themselves when they actually needed them.
It's like she was trying to turn Hogwarts into a magical version of a dystopian society where individuality and critical thinking were forbidden.
Exactly, which is the opposite of what Dumbledore believed in.
Right, Dumbledore always encouraged students to question, to think for themselves.
And Umbridge was basically trying to crush that spirit of inquiry.
So I guess the lesson here is to be wary of those who try to control your thoughts and actions.
Absolutely, and to always fight for your right to learn and to question the world around you.
Okay, so we've gone from fear and insecurity to deception and tyranny.
What a roller coaster.
Right. But through it all, we see these glimpses of hope and resilience.
Like Lupin's compassion and Dumbledore's unwavering belief in the power of love and choice.
And I think that's ultimately what Defense Against the Dark Arts is all about.
It's not just about spells and potions.
It's about having the courage to face your fears, to fight for what you believe in, and to never give up on the fight for good.
Well said. But speaking of fighting for good, what about the other subjects at Hogwarts? How do they contribute to this whole idea of preparing students for the real world?
Okay, yeah, because it's not all doom and gloom, right? There are plenty of other subjects that teach valuable skills and life lessons.
Absolutely. And maybe even some hidden magic along the way?
Let's dive into that next and see what other treasures we can uncover in the Hogwarts curriculum.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so we've explored the classrooms, we've analyzed the curriculum, we've even debated the merits of various Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. But there's one crucial piece of the Hogwarts experience we haven't really talked about yet.
Oh, I know what you're thinking. All those things that happen outside the classroom.
Exactly. Because let's be real, Hogwarts is more than just lectures and homework.
Hmm.
It's this living, breathing world full of friendships, rivalries, secret passages, and occasional life-threatening adventure.
Right. It's like the castle itself is a character in the story.
Yeah, it totally is.
Right.
And I think those experiences, those unscripted moments, are just as important as any formal education when it comes to preparing students for the real world.
Oh, absolutely. Because how do you teach courage in a classroom?
Right. You can read about bravery in a book, but it's not the same as facing down a giant spider in the Forbidden Forest.
Or a troll in the dungeon.
Or a basilisk in the Chamber of Secrets. I mean, the list goes on and on.
It does. And those experiences, while terrifying, force students to think on their feet, to problem solve, to work together.
To trust their instincts.
Exactly. And that's where the real magic happens.
Okay, so let's talk about some specific examples of how Hogwarts fosters this kind of experiential learning.
All right. Well, one of the most obvious examples is Quidditch.
Oh yeah, Quidditch. It's more than just a game, right?
It's a microcosm of the wizarding world itself,
No.
with its rivalries, its triumphs, its tragedies.
And its occasional rogue bludger.
Of course. But even without the life-threatening injuries, Quidditch teaches students valuable lessons about teamwork strategy and perseverance.
And let's not forget about leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Think about Harry as Gryffindor captain. He had to make tough decisions, inspire his team, and deal with the pressure of representing his house.
Right. It's like a crash course in leadership development disguised as a sport.
Exactly. And then you have all the student organizations and clubs, like Dumbledore's Army, for instance.
Yes, DA, a testament to the power of student initiative and the importance of fighting for what you believe in.
Right. They were literally risking expulsion to learn practical defense against the dark arts skills.
And they did it because they knew it was the right thing to do.
It's like a magical version of a student protest.
Exactly. And it shows that even in a hierarchical system like Hogwarts, students have the power to make a difference.
And then you have things like the Slug Club, which, while not exactly heroic, is still a valuable learning experience.
Right, because it teaches students about networking, social dynamics, the importance of connections.
Which, let's be real, are important skills in any world, magical or otherwise.
Absolutely. So whether they're soaring through the air on a broomstick or secretly practicing spells in the room of requirement, Hogwarts students are constantly learning and growing through these extracurricular experiences.
And I think that's what ultimately makes a Hogwarts education so special.
It's not just about what you learn in the classroom.
It's about who you become along the way.
The friendships you forge, the challenges you overcome, the choices you make.
And the magic you discover within yourself.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Hogwarts education, I think it's safe to say that it's a complex and multifaceted experience.
It's not perfect by any means, but it does offer a unique blend of academic rigor, practical skills, and real-world challenges.
And it's ultimately up to each individual student to make the most of those opportunities.
To learn from their mistakes, to grow from their experiences, and to use their magic to make the world a better place.
Well said. And I think that's a message that resonates far beyond the walls of Hogwarts.
Absolutely. Because whether you're a witch or wizard or just a muggle like me, the magic of learning is something we can all embrace.
It's about curiosity, creativity, and the courage to explore the unknown.
And never underestimate the power of a good story.
Indeed. Because stories have the power to transport us, to inspire us, and to teach us valuable lessons about ourselves and the world around us.
Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time,
Yeah.
we're going to be looking at something that's near and dear to all our hearts, I think, as fans of the Harry Potter universe, and that's magical education.
Yeah.
And
Wizarding schools.
so we all know and love Hogwarts,
Exactly.
but there are other schools out there,
There
right?
must be.
Beauxbatons and
Yeah.
Durmstrang.
Durmstrang, yes.
And
Yeah.
so we're gonna take a look at those today,
Mm.
and kind of see how those schools reflect the cultures and values of their respective
Yeah.
societies.
Yeah, I think it's such a fascinating lens to look at the wizarding world through because,
Yeah.
we're so familiar with Hogwarts
Right?
and it's a British school. It's kind of our entry point
Yeah.
into this world.
It's our home base.
But to think about,
Yeah.
how magic might be taught differently in France
Mhm.
or
In Scandinavia or wherever Durmstrang is, it's just
Yeah.
really
just gives you such a broader
expands the world.
view of
that
the
we
world,
know.
right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to dive into that.
Okay, cool. So,
Mhm.
let's start with Hogwarts because we're all
It's familiar.
it's our
I know.
baseline with
Right.
yeah.
So, one of the things that always strikes me about Hogwarts is the emphasis on defense against the dark arts.
Right.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
Harry and his friends spent an awful lot of time learning to defend themselves
That's
against,
true.
dark creatures and
Yeah.
spells and such.
It's not just a theoretical subject either. It's
Right.
like very
Yeah.
hands-on, very practical. They're out there,
Yeah.
fighting boggarts and
Yeah.
pixies and all
So-
sorts of things.
And it really makes you think, right? Like,
What is it about British wizarding culture that makes them put such an emphasis on
right.
defense?
I mean, they've had pretty, tumultuous history
Yeah.
with dark wizards,
Yeah.
Grindelwald and
Voldemort.
Voldemort, of course.
Yeah.
So maybe it's,
Yeah.
just a reflection of that.
Yeah, it's like they see darkness as a constant threat.
Yeah, constant presence,
Okay.
something to always be wary of.
Yeah, and the castle itself kind of
Yeah.
reflects
What do you think about that?
that a bit. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you've got the moving staircases and
Yeah.
the secret passages and
the Forbidden Forest right there on the grounds.
yeah, the Forbidden Forest. I mean, it's not exactly
It feels a bit wild, right?
the safest.
Yeah, like a little untamed.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
kind of wildness to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
So let's contrast that then with Beauxbatons.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Beauxbatons.
I mean, just the name itself kind of evokes this sense of like
Elegant.
elegance
It does, doesn't it?
and refinement.
Yeah.
Like even the way they arrive, in the Triwizard Tournament with that
In that carriage drawn by those giant horses.
beautiful carriage
Yeah.
with the winged horses.
Yep.
It's just stunning.
Yeah, they practically float down to the grounds.
Yeah.
It's not like this.
It's very graceful.
Yeah.
It's not like the Hogwarts Express
right.
chugging in.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a very different vibe.
And they're located in the Pyrenees Mountains, right?
Right, in the Pyrenees.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they're a beautiful part of the world.
like this kind of connection to nature, but
Yeah.
nature at its most.
But in a very like majestic
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Like pristine.
Yeah, and then you think about like Fleur Delacour,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, Fleur's a great example.
I mean, she's all like poise and charm,
Mhm.
right?
But also a tough competitor.
She's a fierce competitor.
Yeah, in the Triwizard Tournament.
Yeah, so it's not just about
Yeah.
appearances.
Right.
There's
Their skills.
superficial beauty. There's a
Yeah.
strength there too.
And capable witches and wizards.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Beauxbatons really challenges that stereotype that beauty is
Yeah.
somehow superficial.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like their magic is
Yeah.
beautiful.
It's intertwined with the elegance.
Right.
Yeah.
And the artistry,
Yeah.
it's just part of their
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah. Okay. So then we have Durmstrang,
Durmstrang, yeah.
which is like
The mysterious Durmstrang.
almost the opposite of Beauxbatons, right?
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just geographically, they're located
They're way up north.
somewhere in Northern Europe.
Yeah. Yeah.
In like Scandinavia or something.
Yeah, probably Scandinavia.
Yeah, and it's this really harsh environment.
Yeah, like cold and rugged.
You know,
Long winters.
Yeah.
Unforgiving landscape.
and that seems to have really shaped their.
Yeah, and I think that's
I have
reflected
to
in
their approach to magic.
Right, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
think about Victor Crumb.
Yeah.
I mean, he was an exceptional Quidditch player.
Yeah, incredibly talented.
But also a bit of a,
Yeah, a little rough around the edges.
rough around the edges. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not that like
Not the most polished guy.
polished.
Yeah.
Beauxbatons.
Yeah, but incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
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 Very strong.
And Durmstrang seems to put a lot of emphasis on
Yeah.
like physical
prowess.
strength.
Yeah.
Dueling.
Yeah, they're big on dueling.
A lot of emphasis on combat training.
Right.
It's not just about books and theory. For them, it's about being able to actually, it's like they see magic as a
Defend yourself.
defend yourself for
Yeah,
survival,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, like a practical tool.
Yeah, like how do you survive
Survival and for
Yeah.
asserting your dominance.
in this really harsh
Yeah.
environment?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It comes across.
So it's like, strength and
Yeah.
resilience
Yeah.
are really,
Yeah, I wonder what their curriculum is, actually.
yeah. Do they have specialized courses in combat magic or,
Yeah.
I mean,
Do they delve into...
do they teach things that Hogwarts might consider
Yeah.
a little bit risky?
Yeah,
That's a great question.
we don't really know.
Yeah.
We get these little glimpses.
Yeah, it's all very mysterious.
Yeah. Durmstrang is
Yeah.
shrouded in mystery.
And particularly their attitude
Yeah.
towards the dark arts has always been
That's the big question mark, isn't
a
it?
bit of a
Yeah.
mystery.
Like, how did they approach that?
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so we've kind of laid the groundwork here.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's dig into some
You think that's
specifics
just-
now.
Yeah.
What are some specific details from the books that we can use to really compare these schools and the types of witches and wizards that they produce?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Let's think about that.
Yeah.
Well, let's take charms, for example.
Okay.
At Hogwarts, charms seems to focus on pretty practical applications.
Right.
Like, levitating objects or repairing broken items.
Right, like the spells that you would use.
Yeah, day to day.
In everyday life.
Exactly.
Right. And remember how talented Hermione was at charms?
Oh, yeah. Hermione was a whiz at charms.
All right. Always came in handy.
Always.
Whether she was fixing Harry's glasses or...
Yeah, or conjuring a Patronus.
Right, exactly.
That's a pretty advanced charm, but she
Yeah.
managed it.
She did. But at Beauxbatons, I imagine charms might be more about aesthetics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Creating beauty and wonder.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they'd use charms to
Yeah.
choreograph elaborate light displays or imbue objects with an ethereal glow.
Or make like flowers bloom.
Ooh.
Yeah. Or something.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
It really aligns with their whole emphasis on grace and artistry.
Right.
Remember how Fleur used a charm to create those shimmering bubbles?
Oh, yeah.
That kept her warm underwater during the second task?
During the Triwizard Tournament.
With Triwizard Tournament?
Yeah.
I mean, it was practical magic, yes.
Right.
But it was also undeniably beautiful.
Right. It was like practical, but with this flair.
It had that Beauxbatons flair.
Right.
On it.
And what about Durmstrang?
Durmstrang.
I wouldn't be surprised if their charms lessons involved things like imbuing objects with incredible force.
Oh. Like a punch that's got extra oomph. Enhancing.
Or maybe making your footsteps completely silent.
Ooh. Like for sneaking up on an opponent.
For stealth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very Durmstrang.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So even a subject like charms, which,
Right.
seems pretty basic.
Yeah, you think it would be taught the same everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's not.
But it can be taught and applied in such different ways.
Yeah.
Right?
It's all about the emphasis.
Yeah.
You know?
It reflects the values of each school.
Priorities.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
So, and those differences probably extend beyond academics, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? I mean, think about the social lives of students at each school.
Yeah.
I mean, Hogwarts has its houses with their rivalries and traditions.
Right. Gryffindor versus Slytherin.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Huge rivalry. And it was friendly competitions sometimes.
Sometimes.
But sometimes not so friendly.
Yeah, things could get pretty heated.
Yeah, especially on the Quidditch pitch. Oh, yeah, on the Quidditch pitch. It was
Yeah.
all-out war.
Right. But it created this, like,
Mm.
sense of belonging,
Yeah.
like you were a part of something.
Yeah, you had your tribe,
Yeah.
your team.
Yeah. I wonder if Beauxbatons has anything similar. Maybe they have different social circles
Yeah.
based on, like, magical talents or interests.
Or maybe their gatherings are all about, like, artistic expression,
Ooh.
and refinement.
Yeah.
Very elegant soirees
Yeah.
with, beautiful music and,
Oh, like a harp playing.
yeah, and poetry readings.
Oh, that's so Beauxbatons.
Yeah, it fits their motto, right?
What is their motto?
Let us be graceful in magic as we are graceful in all things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that seems to permeate every aspect of their culture.
Yeah, from
Yep.
their magic to their social interactions. It's all about grace.
Okay, so Durmstrang, though,
Durmstrang?
they probably have a
No.
much more, like...
I bet it's pretty hierarchical. Where the strongest and most skilled wizards
Yeah.
are the ones who command respect.
Yeah.
Maybe their idea of a fun night out is like
What?
some intense sparring
Ooh.
or a display of raw magical power. Something a bit
That's
more...
intimidating.
Yeah, a little intimidating, a
Yeah.
little intense.
Yeah, it's very Durmstrang.
Yeah, I think it fits with their emphasis on physical prowess.
Yeah.
And their location in such a challenging environment,
Yeah.
It's easy to imagine how that would shape
Yeah.
their social dynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this brings us back to the dark arts.
Ah, yes. The dark arts.
We've talked about Durmstrang's potential leniency in this area.
Right.
What does that really mean?
That's a good question.
Right.
And it's important to remember that dark arts is a pretty loaded term.
Right.
What one wizarding culture might consider dangerous
Yeah.
or forbidden, another might view as
Right.
just a different form of magic.
Right. So it's not always like a clear
Yeah.
good versus evil
No, it's not black and white.
distinction.
Yeah, it's a lot more nuanced than that.
Okay.
So at Hogwarts, the dark arts are generally seen as magic
Right.
that's used to inflict harm or control others.
Right.
And they really focus on defense against these practices.
Right. Like, how do we protect ourselves
Exactly.
of these dark arts?
How do we shield ourselves?
Yeah.
But Durmstrang's perspective might be more like, well, power is power.
Mm.
It's a tool,
Right.
and it's up to the wizard to decide how to use it.
So it's more about, like, mastery?
Yeah, mastery and control.
Right.
Regardless of whether it's considered dark or light.
Okay.
Yeah.
And remember those whispers about Durmstrang's former headmaster?
Igor Karkaroff?
Yeah, Igor Karkaroff.
Yeah.
His past association with Death Eaters?
Ooh. Yeah, that was a bit shady, wasn't it?
It definitely raised some eyebrows.
Yeah, it did.
And it kind of suggested that maybe they have a more...
Yeah, a more permissive attitude.
Yeah.
Towards certain types of magic that Hogwarts would be like,
Yeah, absolute forbidden.
no way.
Yeah.
You're not doing that here.
So it's like they're not afraid to explore
Yeah.
those more dangerous and ethically ambiguous...
They're pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
They're not shying away from the gray areas.
Yeah, that raises some interesting questions, right?
Oh, definitely.
I mean, does this make their students more powerful?
Potentially.
More
Yeah,
adaptable?
they're more versatile.
Or does it put them at greater risk of, like,
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
yeah, going down a dark path?
Yeah. Are they more likely to be tempted by the dark side?
Yeah, it's almost like they're walking this
Yeah.
tightrope, right?
Or the balancing act?
Yeah, pushing the boundaries of magic, but trying not to
Right.
fall into the abyss.
Yeah, you could lose your footing.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the danger.
And it makes you wonder, right? Like, what are the long-term consequences of this?
Yeah. Do Durmstrang graduates generally use their powers for good? Or are they more prone to,
Yeah.
going rogue?
Yeah.
We don't really know.
Right. And it's hard to say because we only get
You only get these glimpses.
these little
Wow,
glimpses,
right.
these little
Yeah,
snapshots.
right.
It's not like we've done a longitudinal study
Right.
of Durmstrang graduates.
And it's important to remember that you can't judge an entire school
Right.
based on the actions
Oh, it's a
of
few individuals.
a few individuals.
Yeah.
Or even its reputation.
Right. Reputation can be misleading.
Yeah.
There are probably Durmstrang graduates who do amazing things
Right.
and use their skills for good,
Right.
just as there might be some Hogwarts graduates
Right.
who make questionable choices.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really about the individual.
Yeah. Ultimately, it comes down to individual choice and circumstance.
Yeah. So does the education really determine the moral compass
That's the big question.
of students?
Does the school mold you,
Yeah.
or do you bring your own,
Right.
predisposition? Or is it a combination of the two?
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
Nature and nurture.
And the influences of the wider wizarding world.
Right, the world you're going out into.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that has a huge impact too.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So
So it's complicated.
yeah, it's complicated.
It's not a simple answer.
And I think that's what makes this so interesting,
Yeah.
right?
There's all these layers.
It's not simple.
Yeah, it's nuanced.
Yeah, and it makes you think.
Yeah, it makes you think. That's
Yeah.
what we like.
Okay, so we've explored these different schools,
Yeah.
their atmospheres,
Yeah.
their educational approaches,
Their values.
their values.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
Well, I think it feels like we've only just scratched the surface here,
Yeah,
you know?
it's like we've opened this door
Yeah.
to this whole other way of looking at the Harry Potter world.
Right. And it makes you wonder, you know,
Yeah.
how would things have been different
Yeah.
if our main characters had gone to different schools?
Yeah. Right. Like imagine Harry at Beauxbatons,
Oh, wow.
right? Would he still be that same
It's a cool one.
like rule-breaking Quidditch-loving hero?
Yeah.
Or would he have been like,
Would they have tamed him a little bit?
yeah,
Maybe.
a little more refined?
Yeah, a little more
Yeah.
polished.
Yeah.
A little more diplomatic.
Yeah. But what
know.
if you've even played Quidditch?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Right.
Maybe they're all about like magical ballet,
Probably.
you know, or
Yeah.
something.
Or like synchronized swimming with like,
Ooh, I could see that.
yeah,
I could see that.
creatures.
Yeah. That's very Beauxbatons.
Okay, so what about Hermione?
Hermione?
Could you picture her at Durmstrang,
Oh.
right? Where it's all about like,
It's so different from her personality. I
Yeah.
mean, she's so bookish and,
right?
you know.
She's all about like logic and rules.
Yeah, rule follower.
Yeah.
I don't know if she would have lasted very long at Durmstrang.
But maybe Durmstrang would have forced her to like
Yeah.
toughen up a bit.
Yeah, to develop that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, that inner strength,
Right.
that resilience
Yeah.
that she maybe didn't know she had
Right.
because she wouldn't have had Ron and Harry
Oh, it's
to
a-
protect
You
her.
always rely on.
Yeah,
Right.
she would have had to fend for herself.
She would have to find that strength within herself.
Well, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, right?
Mhm.
Would Harry still have faced Voldemort
Hmm.
with the same kind of
With the same conviction.
conviction if he had gone to a different school?
Yeah. I mean, would he have been as
Wait.
prepared? Would he have had the same,
Yeah.
you know, experiences
Yeah.
that shaped him?
And would Hermione have become
Right.
the brilliant strategist
Yeah.
that she is?
The brightest witch of her age.
Right.
Yeah.
If she had been in a different environment.
Right. Maybe she would have excelled in a different way.
Right.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. So it's like, these are all these like,
It's all speculation,
yeah,
but it's fun to speculate.
it is fun to speculate.
It's fun to think about. It's
Yeah.
what makes, you know, rereading the books
Yeah.
and rewatching the movie
Well,
so enjoyable.
because you can kind of like,
You see new things.
yeah, layer
Yeah, you notice new details.
with new perspective.
Yeah, and, you know, I wish J.K. Rowling had given us
Right.
more.
More details about these schools.
Like, I would love a whole book
oh, yeah.
about Beauxbatons or Durmstrang.
Yeah, just a year in the life of a
Yeah.
student at
Yeah.
one of these schools.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
But, you know, she didn't, so
Yeah.
we have to use our imaginations.
Right, and that's part of the fun.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like we're co-authors of the story in a way. We
Yeah.
get to fill in the blanks.
Yeah, and that's what makes exploring the Harry Potter world
Yeah.
so rewarding.
It never gets old.
It doesn't. All right, so get this. We're diving deep into a world where, like, sending an owl to deliver mail, that's like the height of technology.
Yeah. It's wild.
Right? We're tackling the wizarding world,
Yeah.
and they're kind of like curious aversion to anything muggle tech.
Right.
We're talking wands potions, not smartphones,
Yeah.
and wifey, you know.
Exactly.
And that's what's so fascinating to me. Like, why is that?
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't life just be easier with a few well-placed gadgets?
Right.
What are they missing out on?
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be using primarily the Harry Potter books as our guide, but also there's a really interesting article from Harry Potter Planet about wizarding technology and how it all kind of works.
Yeah. So it's a great resource for sure.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So
Absolutely.
it's more than just like a quirky preference, right?
It is, yeah. It's deep-seated reasons why wizards view our tech the way they do, and it has real consequences for their society.
Okay, so let's start with something that always kind of like struck me as odd.
Okay.
Remember in Sorcerer's Stone, when Harry's at the zoo,
Yeah.
he ends up talking to a snake, and the glass on its enclosure just vanishes.
Bro.
Like, poof, gone.
Yeah.
That's not just magic being cool, right?
Yeah.
That suggests something deeper about how magic and tech kind of like interact with each other.
Exactly. That scene hints at a fundamental incompatibility.
Hmm.
The article refers to it as magical interference.
Okay.
It's not just that wizards can't use a phone or they choose not to, it's that magic can actually make technology go haywire.
Wow.
So imagine trying to use a computer in a room full of magical energy.
Like,
Chaos.
it would just explode.
Yeah.
So it's not even just a lack of interest in technology. It's almost like they're actively avoiding it out of necessity.
Yeah.
Like it's going to blow up in their face.
Exactly. They've learned
Uh,
that it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And that feeds into another reason for their tech aversion, which is a sense of magical pride.
Okay.
So using Muggle tech is almost seen as an admission of weakness, like saying, you're not magically skilled enough to solve a problem.
Yeah, like if I need a flashlight, I must be a pretty lousy wizard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, think about Arthur Weasley.
Yeah.
He's fascinated by Muggle inventions.
If he loves it.
He loves them,
Yeah.
but he doesn't quite get them.
Right.
And there's this underlying sense that for him and other wizards, relying on technology means you haven't mastered your own magical potential.
So it's like a point of pride, like, I'm so good at magic, I don't need your silly muggle stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's almost like a badge of honor.
It's interesting because, like, Mr. Weasley works at the Ministry of Magic regulating muggle artifacts.
That's right.
So it's not just an individual prejudice.
Yeah.
It's almost like institutionalized.
It is. The ministry even has a whole department. The Misuse of Muggle Artifacts Office dedicated to controlling the interaction between magic and technology.
Wow.
Which brings us to another key factor, cultural isolationism.
Right. And I think the statute of secrecy, the law that keeps the wizarding world hidden, that plays a huge role in that. Like the Leaky Cauldron, Diagon Alley, Hogwarts,
Huge.
they're all about separation from the muggle world.
Yes, and that separation goes deeper than just physical spaces, right?
Right.
This limited contact breeds a lack of understanding
Yeah.
and even fear.
So it's like, by keeping themselves apart, wizards might actually be perpetuating their own misconceptions about technology.
It's very possible.
Which makes me wonder about, like, the reverse. How do muggles view the wizarding world?
Yeah.
How might that be influenced by their own lack of understanding?
Yeah, it's a two-way street. Isolation leads to misunderstanding on both sides.
Right.
Which then makes it even harder to bridge the gap.
Of course.
And this, of course, has implications for progress.
Because if you're rejecting an entire realm of knowledge and innovation, aren't you limiting your own potential?
Potentially, yes.
The article specifically points out how wizards still rely on quill and parchment
I
when
know.
muggles have computers.
Right.
It makes you wonder, are they missing out on solutions to their own problems just because those solutions come from the wrong world?
It's a great question. Are they hamstringing themselves in a way by rejecting Muggle technology?
Yeah.
Like, could Muggle medicine offer insights into magical ailments?
Right.
Could better communication systems improve the ministry's often chaotic operations?
Right.
It's fascinating to think about.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating question for sure.
Absolutely. And yet, you know, despite this kind of general aversion, there are those moments where the wizarding world seems to embrace Muggle technology,
Right.
or at least adapt it to their needs.
It's not a total rejection.
Right.
It's more like a selective acceptance.
Yes.
Like with the Weasleys' enchanted Fort Anglia and Chamber of Secrets.
Oh, yeah.
Like they take a perfectly ordinary muggle car
Right.
and give it a magical upgrade. It's brilliant.
It's amazing.
But it also makes you think, like, why not do that more often?
Yeah, that's the question, right? What are their criteria?
Right.
Is it purely practicality? Are there deeper cultural or even philosophical reasons why some tech is okay and others are just completely off limits?
Yeah. Is there like a line they're drawing?
Yeah.
Like maybe it's not so much about the tech itself, but how it's used.
Right.
The Fort Anglia is a good example. It
Yeah.
allows the Weasleys to navigate the muggle world discreetly,
Right.
which actually helps maintain the statute of secrecy.
That's
You know,
right.
the law that keeps wizards hidden.
That's a key point.
Yeah.
The statute of secrecy likely influences a lot of their decisions about technology.
Right.
Anything that risks exposure to muggles is probably a no-go.
Right.
But if they can adapt something to help them blend in,
Yeah.
or even just make their lives easier without attracting attention,
Yeah.
then it becomes more acceptable.
They're trying to find a balance.
Yeah.
They want the benefits of some muggle innovations,
Yeah.
but not at the cost of their own world's safety and secrecy.
Precisely.
Hmm.
And that brings us to another fascinating example.
Okay.
The night bus. It's a brilliant blend of Muggle design and wizarding ingenuity.
Yeah.
They take this iconic triple-decker bus and magically enhance it to squeeze through tight spaces and even teleport.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't want to ride a bus that can jump over
Yeah.
traffic? But it's also a perfect example of how wizards can adapt and innovate.
Absolutely.
They're not against progress.
No,
It's just that their progress looks different from ours.
it does. Instead of focusing on, electronics and digital advancements, their progress is driven by magical ingenuity.
Hmm.
They're pushing the boundaries of what's possible with spells, potions, enchantments.
So it's not that they're stuck in the past, it's just that they've chosen a different path.
Exactly.
Totally.
But this choice does have consequences.
Hmm.
By limiting their interaction with Muggle technology, they may also be limiting their ability to solve problems in new and innovative ways.
Okay.
For instance, think about healthcare.
Okay.
Wizards rely almost exclusively on potions and spells, even for injuries that Muggle medicine could easily treat.
That always seemed odd to me.
Right.
Like, wouldn't there be situations where a combination of magical and Muggle treatments would be more effective?
Sure.
What if they could learn from each other's approaches?
It's a fascinating thought experiment.
Yeah.
Could magical healing be enhanced by Muggle medical knowledge?
Mm.
Could Muggle ailments benefit from magical remedies?
Right.
It raises questions about the potential for collaboration and the missed opportunities that isolation creates.
It's almost like they're afraid to mix the two worlds too much.
Yeah.
Like it might dilute their magic somehow.
I think there's probably an element of this desire to maintain their magical purity and avoid contamination by Muggle influences.
Yeah.
But it also suggests a lack of trust,
Hmm.
perhaps even a fear of the unknown.
Which honestly isn't that different from some attitudes you see in the Muggle world.
Right.
Like people get scared of things they don't understand.
Yeah.
It's easier to reject something outright than to try to learn about it and see its potential benefits.
A very astute observation. And this fear, this resistance to the unknown, is a recurring theme in the wizarding world's relationship with technology.
Okay.
It's what drives their isolation, fuels their misconceptions, and ultimately limits their potential.
Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom.
Right.
I mean, we see examples of wizards using technology effectively.
Right.
With the enchanted cars and the night bus.
Absolutely.
And let's not forget about communication. Owl Post is charming,
Yeah.
but it's not exactly efficient.
No, not at all.
So,
Indeed, the way they handle communication is another interesting case study.
okay.
Owl Post is their primary method,
Yeah.
reliable, secure,
Yeah.
but it also reflects their preference for tradition over speed.
And their reluctance to like fully embrace Muggle solutions.
Wow.
I mean, they're aware of telephones and the internet, right?
Certainly,
Yeah.
but they choose to stick with their own methods,
Yeah.
even when they're slower and less convenient.
Yeah.
It's about maintaining their distinct identity and way of life.
Right, but there are exceptions,
Mhm.
right? There are.
Like when they need to communicate quickly or discreetly,
Yes.
they use Patronus messages.
Oh, yes.
Those silvery guardians that can deliver messages instantly.
Exactly.
It's like their version of a magical text.
Exactly. Patronus messaging demonstrates their willingness to adapt when necessary.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating blend of magic and efficiency, but it's also a highly specialized tool,
Yeah.
not a replacement for Owl Post.
Right. It's almost like they're saying we'll use this technology on our own terms.
Exactly.
For our own purposes.
Yes.
There's a sense of control there, a refusal to let technology dictate how they live their lives.
Right.
Which is actually quite refreshing, wouldn't you say?
Indeed, it's a reminder that progress doesn't have to be linear
Right.
or defined by the latest gadgets.
Yeah.
The wizarding world chooses to focus on their own unique strengths and traditions.
Right.
And in doing so, they challenge us to question our own assumptions about what it means to be advanced.
So if we're looking at like the big picture here,
Yeah.
what's the takeaway?
Is the wizarding world just stubbornly clinging to the past? Or is there something more to the reluctance to, like, embrace Muggle technology?
I think it's more nuanced than just stubbornness. I
Okay.
think it comes down to a deep-seated respect for tradition,
Oh,
for their own unique history and identity. They've built a society that works for them based on their values and their magic, and they're not eager to disrupt that, even if it means foregoing some of the conveniences that we Muggles just take for granted.
But doesn't that risk making them seem well backward?
Mm.
I mean, some of their methods are downright archaic.
Yeah.
Quill and parchment. Seriously.
Hello.
It's like they're deliberately choosing to stay in the Dark Ages.
It's easy to judge from our perspective, immersed as we are in the digital age.
Right.
But remember, their definition of progress is different.
Okay.
They've made incredible advancements in magic things we muggles can only dream of.
Right.
Teleportation, healing spells, even time travel.
Yeah.
They've found solutions to problems that we're still struggling with, just using a different set of tools.
So it's not about being better or worse,
Right.
but simply different.
Exactly.
Like two parallel paths of development, each with its own strengths and weaknesses.
Precisely. Their magic allows them to achieve things that we can't even fathom.
Right.
And they've built a culture around that magic, a way of life that's deeply intertwined with their values and traditions.
Okay, I get that. But still, I can't help but wonder, what if they were a bit more open to Muggle ideas?
Yeah.
Could they achieve even greater things by combining their magic with our technology?
The age-old question that sparks endless debate among fans.
Right.
Imagine the possibilities of that magical prosthetics that function seamlessly with the human body.
Wow.
Enchanted communication devices that work even in magically shielded areas.
Yeah.
Potions brewed with the precision of modern chemistry.
It's mind-boggling.
It is.
But then you have to consider the potential downsides.
Yeah.
What would happen to the statute of secrecy if wizards started integrating Muggle tech into their lives?
Right.
Would it become harder to stay hidden?
Absolutely.
And would such integration somehow dilute or compromise their magic?
Those are the big questions, aren't they?
Yeah.
The ethical dilemma is at the heart of this issue.
Hmm.
It's not a simple equation of progress equals good.
Right.
There are trade-offs, risks, unintended consequences,
Yeah.
and the wizarding world seems acutely aware of that.
So maybe their cautious approach isn't just about pride or fear.
Mm.
Maybe it's a form of self-preservation, a way of protecting their world, their magic, their way of life.
That's a very insightful observation, and it brings us back to one of the core themes of this deep dive.
Okay.
The tension between tradition and progress.
Right.
The wizarding world is constantly navigating that tension, making choices that reflect their values and priorities.
And those choices, even the ones that seem baffling to us, Muggles,
Right.
they offer valuable lessons. They remind us that progress isn't a one-size-fits-all concept,
Absolutely.
that there are different ways of innovating, different ways of solving problems, different ways of defining success.
Indeed, and perhaps most importantly, they remind us of the importance of preserving our own unique identities
Right.
in a world that often pressures us to conform.
Well said.
Yeah.
So to our listeners, as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
we leave you with this.
Okay.
Imagine you're a wizard faced with a choice of embracing Muggle technology or holding fast to tradition. What would you do?
Right.
What factors would you consider?
Yeah.
And what would the consequences be for you and for your world?
It's a question worth pondering. Thanks for joining us on this fascinating exploration of magic technology and the choices we make in the face of an ever-changing world.